Hello and welcome to Rajat TV. You're watching discussion today with the host Rajat Kain. Well, in this edition of the show, we'll talk about Prime Minister's pitch for strengthening cooperative federalism. Now, addressing the 6th Governing Council meeting of NITI Aayog, the Prime Minister underlined the basis of country's progress is cooperative federalism. The whole country succeeded when the states and the central government worked together during coronavirus pandemic. Now, counting various schemes of public welfare, he said when the centre and the state governments work together in all such schemes, the speed of work also increases and benefits reaches to the last person who is desired to be given the effect of these schemes. Well, how important is the concept of cooperative federalism? To discuss more on this issue, we joined with a panel of two guests. We are joined with Professor Charan Singh. He is CEO of EGROW Foundation, and Mr. Sushil Chandra Tripathi. He is former Finance Secretary in the government of Uttar Pradesh. Many thanks for joining us, sir. Let me start with you, Professor Charan Singh. The concept of cooperative federalism, or for that matter, the amalgamation in terms of the synergies of working of the centre and the state for a common cause is not a new concept, but how it's still relevant and how it's important for Indian economy, or to say Indian society in general.
In the context of India, where we are an emerging country and we have a long way to go,
right.
And when the Prime Minister has given us an objective of a $5 trillion economy in 2024 or a $30 trillion economy by 2030, the path is very clear, having the objective in sight, and therefore the need for cooperation across the country, be it the centre, be it the state, and now the district becomes extremely important. Otherwise, this Herculean task of a $5 trillion economy is not possible at all.
Okay.
Now the issue is, having tasted the success during COVID time, how the country can move together, be it the starting of vaccination now, or the lockdown, or the provision of the food, and all the provisions that were made during the lockdown period, the success in containing the fatality rate of the COVID proved that if the centre and state and the districts work together, you can take care of the difficulty that people face, and you can make the environment conducive for growth and industrialization. I think the way the country reacted to the shortage of equipment during COVID time, how the industry, the states and the centre put their energies together, and within a short time, our hospitals were equipped to handle the patient. That's exactly a great example of the cooperative federalism.
Right.
The Prime Minister in his address, very rightly, the agenda items also show what are the areas in which they are working. And I was very happy when I saw that things like malnutrition have also been brought to the forefront. Of course, infrastructure is also very important. So if the country has to grow and achieve its stated objectives slated by the Prime Minister, I think the private sector as well as the states and districts will have to work together.
Right. Many thanks, Professor Charan Singh, for your opening remarks. Of course, the concept of cooperative federalism is paramount in terms of democracies where you have a federal structure. So, Mr. Sushil Chandra here. So, given your experience in bureaucracy, in handling the state apparatus, what are the challenges when it comes to the federal structure, and of course, like when there are certain things about the centre and the state? I mean, we will talk about like how the concept is important, as Professor Charan Singh said, but at least let's start with the challenges first. What are the challenges in this, the nitty-gritty or the framework of the cooperative federalism?
You see, although the roles are very well defined in our constitution for centre and the states, and
Right.
we are a union of states, which means we are a federation but with a strong centre. Sometimes it happens, the challenges are when there are different parties and there are strong political leaders who belong to different sides of the spectrum,
Right.
and they feel that the other is taking credit and they are not getting full credit. And that is where the role of All India services is very important.
Okay.
I will give you some instances, both from the center side and from the state side. From the center side, let me narrate my experience as Secretary Education when I started Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. The most difficult states were UP, Bihar, West Bengal, and Odisha.
Okay.
And this was in NDA 1 at year 2002.
Right.
You see, the relations between the party which was in power in center and the parties which were in power in UP, Bihar, West Bengal, Odisha were not very congenial. Of course, a working relationship was all right. So at political level, there were certain issues which were not getting sorted out. And it was a very major scheme covering about 19 crore children, one of the largest schemes in the world. Right. So I had to, establish my relationship with my counterparts at the states because we are all working for the same cause. Right. Sometime I am in center, sometime I am in state. I realize the perspective that the center brings. I realize the problems that the states have. So we had to work with each other and we had to go together to the political masters and explain to them that it was in the common interest and it was in the interest of the state as well to take up those programs and not to create any obstacles and hindrances in those programs. And they understood. I spoke to Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav, Mrs. Rabdi Devi was the chief minister at that time. I spoke to the chief minister of West Bengal. I spoke to the finance minister of West Bengal, Mr. Ashim Das Gupta was there. And he understood. And I said that, look, states do not have the resources which are required. Center is giving the resources. And then we also have, our requirement is that we should make enough flexibility in the scheme so that the different states can pick and choose. So that kind of flexibility has to be inbuilt in the scheme because we cannot have a common, prescription for all states. Our states vary very much. Our states are larger than most of the countries in the world. So they have their own peculiarities, own requirements, and we must make arrangement for that. Now, coming to state level, when I was Principal Secretary of Finance in UP, we had gone bankrupt in the year 1997 because of the burden that was imposed by the new pay commission. And before that, we had a series of governments which were short-term governments. So, the governance was not in very good shape. So, center helped me. They guided me first they gave me budgetary support. They guided me to go to World Bank and get budgetary support, which was unique. It was the first time that the World Bank was giving budgetary support to a sub-national entity when the nation was not having a program. And that we did because we went to center with clean hand and we requested them and center realized the difficulties. And then there was, although that political level, it may not have been a very harmonious relationship, but at the civil service and at the official level, we worked out, we explained to both sides, and they understood. We were working for the common benefit of the people. Center is also working for the benefit of the same people. State is also working for the benefit of the same people. So there should not be any irritant. So those are examples. And, going far back, I will tell you in 1972, I was working for Agriculture Department in UP, and center provided so much assistance, getting in the agriculture, getting ICR, getting universities, getting state agriculture departments to work together for new breed of, seeds for wheat and rice, and also getting, demonstration farms by the ICRs, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, etc. So it is a cooperative. They should work together. Center having more resources, better skill sets, can be in a better position to guide states. And the states should accept that advice of center in true spirit. That is the cooperative federalism. And center should realize the problems and difficulties on the ground of the states so that there is some leeway, some flexibility built in the schemes.
Right. Many thanks, Mr. Tripathi. This extremely important perspective that you've given straight from, I would say, what happens in the mechanization when it comes to state and center. Well, Professor Charan Singh, we know that we are a multi-party democracy, and of course, I'm sure it will remain for years to come. So clearly, political cohesion is also one of the important facets in achieving best result of cooperative federalism. Do you agree?
I totally agree. There are two, three aspects that I would like to say. Though we are a multi-party democracy, but when it comes to taking decisions, I've always seen that the blocks emerge. Even now, when you see the party in power in the center, it has many parties which are along with it, supporting it or actively part of it. And when you look at the parties which are not supporting, there are also a group of parties and they form government somewhere else. So though it's a multi-party democracy, but sooner or later, they try to find out common grounds, call it the minimum programs, and then they stay together with each other. So to that extent, I always find that when it comes to ideologies, there are two major ideologies as I see. As has just been mentioned, I totally agree with the analysis presented that the Indian bureaucracy provides a very good cohesive. But I would also like to add here, over time, it's not just the Indian bureaucracy which moves from the center to the states and brings the uniformity. I have noticed even the commercial bankers, they are again a nationalized army of thinkers. They move from one state to the other, they're trained, and sometimes when they reach the position of EDs and MDs, and when the ministries consult them, they are having all India knowledge, and they give that advice. I've seen that even in the defense forces, and defense forces, again, being an all India thing, they're also very cohesive, and they also start contributing into decision making at the district level or at the state level. So therefore, even the new institutions which have come up, like the IIMs, especially, and they are taken for advice by the state government and the central government, and they bring in the cohesiveness. So therefore, the Indian federal structure, the way it has emerged, with the intellectuals, with the bureaucrats, everybody working together with a common cause, is really interesting to see. The vibrancy that you saw during COVID brings it out so clearly. Despite the challenges, you saw the banks were working and they were providing all the required support to the commerce in the country. While the bureaucrats were making their policies both at the center and the state, the implementation was being taken care and the government was working so seamlessly through the banking system. The direction of the government policies were being implemented, many of them, through the banking system. So therefore, I say, and this, at that point of time, there was no difference in ideology at the center of the state. So the unifying and cohesive forces which have been set up in the country prevail very, very dominantly, and very clearly the activities are done as a single cohesive federal structure, which to me is very vibrant, and to me is a real, to me it's a great promise that we can deliver once the common objective is well defined, recognized, and the masses join you with it. And when I say masses, I don't mean just the MSMEs, individual, I also mean the private sector. Look, during COVID, how the private sector contributed to the success of the Prime Minister's program when the Prime Minister made an appeal not to let anybody go in the month of March. So I think that's a great feeling. Once objective is defined, the country is together.
Right. So clearly there is a solitary, I would say, pursuit of having good for the country. At the same time, there is a collective effort. Mr. Tripathi, as the government is emphasizing more on the Self-Reliance India or Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative it has taken, especially achieving greater heights in our own indigenous manufacturing, technology, and of course, the knowledge know-how. How the concept, or to say synergies of cooperative federalism would aid that? What is that Prime Minister was aiming at in while addressing NITI Aayog?
You see, the Prime Minister has also mentioned that there should be a competition among the states.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, you know, Yeah, in fact, it is this competition which generates, higher levels of
Healthy competition, to
efficiency.
say of healthy competition.
Healthy competition.
Yeah, that's
And
important to
now,
have. Yeah.
because of the communications are so good, and the market has integrated the entire country into one unit, and communications bring whatever happens in one part of the country into the other part also. So people see that the so-called progressive states, why they are ahead of other so-called not so progressive states. And they are questioning their government, they're questioning their leaders, questioning their representatives, questioning the bureaucrats and everybody. So, and this healthy competition in which a grading is also being given, which state is more, friendly towards setting up of industry and working for, institutions which is more easier to workplace, etc. So now these are bringing changes rather than imposing something from the center. Whereas I mentioned sometimes, there are strong political leaders in the states also, and they feel that there should not be any imposition. So it comes by watching the things in other states, how they are doing, and absorbing the plus points from there and importing them into their own state, rather than an imposition coming from outside that you do this. As I said, the states are also very large entities, and some of these leaders who are in positions in the states as chief ministers and ministers, they have themselves very large following and their own ideologies, which may not be the same as the center's ideology. So when they see how things are happening in other states and people question them, then it puts a very good pressure on them, and they also take those necessary steps. So I think that will result in more, industry, business, and as was pointed out by the other panelists, the banking sector and the private sector, banking sector, the technologists, the new India which has emerged from IIMs, IITs, universities. They are pan India. They don't believe in regionalism. So if you go to Bangalore, you find the software engineers from all over the country working there.
Absolutely.
If you go to Silicon Valley, you find software engineers from whole of India working there. So this new generation is also bringing in new ideas and new ways, new ethics for work. So I think that will all generate a very good environment, and these things will work much better.
Right, certainly. So there is, as we are emphasizing in this program, there are synergy in, of course, like in new things that are coming up, and that is, of course, adding to the concept of cooperation between the center and state. Professor Singh, as we're talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, now before we actually achieve a self-reliant India, should there is also be a need of having self-reliant states, considering it's a state or the collection of states, the collective synergy from state, which will ultimately contribute towards the larger cause of a self-reliant India. Do you agree?
Totally agree. I would like to say one thing. Look, we were all growing. We all wanted to grow. But what the Prime Minister did, he suddenly set a target of a $5 trillion economy. Now what happens? Every child, every person in nook and corner of the country knows this $5 trillion economy is our objective. You achieve it or not achieve it is different. But at least the objective is clear.
Right.
Everybody is working with a single aim that somehow I have to achieve. There's a dream visible there now, and that has to be achieved. So now how do we achieve it? A small MSME industrialist guy, he also knows the country is aiming at a $5 trillion economy. So when in Delhi a policy announcement is made, everybody knows the aim at the end of the day is a $5 trillion economy. Now, please remember, I think 30 or 40 years ago, I think it was 1990, when we did that, we want to strengthen the local body. Article 290 amendments that took place. Where did it all go? Nothing happened. So I think what the Prime Minister has said today is, yes, there is a center which is strong, it should be strong. There is a state which is also as large as any other country. But then what happens to the local bodies and district level authorities? They have also to contribute shoulder to shoulder into this making $5 trillion economy.
Right.
So otherwise what happens? It's a top-down approach. The Prime Minister said something, the Chief Minister said something, but the common man on the street doesn't get the feel of it. But when he says that connect the districts also, and there are not too many of them, just about 625 districts are there. If their heads also put their minds together and they bring in the energy and they start thinking in terms of where are the gaps, infrastructure, industrialization, MSME, gaps in agriculture, marketing or agriculture, just imagine how you unleash the productive activities in the country. So, my thought would be, as the NITI Aayog has turned out to be a new think tank, vibrant, and the Prime Minister speaks to it, we really need to connect it to something like NITI Aayogs in the states also. Because this, as rightly said, each state is like as huge as a country and very heterogeneous in terms of activities that they do, the activities that their MSMEs do, the prominent activities that are prevalent in the state agriculture or industry or micro, small and medium enterprises, they're all very different. Each one needs to pick up some training, some strategy, some policy which is earmarked to that state. The objective is same, $5 trillion economy.
Right.
But each district upwards has to think, how do I achieve that? If we are a $2.8 trillion economy today, in 3 to 4 years, we want to be a $5 trillion economy. That means we have to double our output. Each district starts thinking of doubling its output. You can imagine how quickly we'll achieve that.
Right.
So I think it needs a focused approach. And to shepherd that focused approach, maybe NITI-like institutions should be there in each state.
Right, right. That's important, that focused approach, as you mentioned. Just as we're about to close the show, Mr. Tripathi, do you also, what's your take, rather? I'm not asking if you agree or don't agree. What's your take for achieving self-reliant India? We also have to work in having a self-reliant states.
You see, self-reliance does not mean that you do everything in-house. One should see the endowment. What is the endowment picture of the state or the region, and then work for most efficient utilization of that endowment.
Absolutely.
It can be a resource, physical resource. It can be human resource. It can be intellectual resource. Therefore, and as I said, the country is now one entity, one economic unit. So it may not be necessary for every state to do everything. Some state may be very good in some mineral resources. Some state may be very good in some intellectual resources.
Right.
Some state may produce the best universities in the world. Some state may produce the best iron in the world, iron and steel in the world. Some state may produce the best software engineers in the world. And we are all in one entity. So, of course, at some level, all of them must work. But the quality and the highest degree of efficiency can be achieved by those who have the endowment in their favor, and they have cutting edge, the policies which suit that endowment.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So clearly policies that suits endowment, and of course, like working to the best of the resources is something that we all need to work on. And certainly for a cooperative federalism, the cohesion between the state and center has to be there in the years to come. Many thanks for joining us, Professor Charan Singh, and many thanks, Mr. Sushil Chandra Tripathi, for joining us and giving a perspective on what is in this concept of cooperative federalism. Well, many thanks to our viewers for watching this edition of Discussion Today. Stay tuned to RSTV for more. Thank you and goodbye.